If you were to collect more than 50 million old tires, you would encounter something like this in a single moment. Large installations on Earth are usually visible from space, but this old tire cemetery in Kuwait can also be seen from space. These squares that you see with tires in them are not even as deep as the ground. Each of these is several meters deep. This cemetery is the largest old tire cemetery in the world, located in Salibia, Kuwait. We all know that the Kuwaiti dinar is one of the most expensive currencies in the world. Each Kuwaiti dinar is worth $3.20. A country that has the largest oil reserves and a very small population. That's why their per capita income is very high. 4.5 million people live in Kuwait, only 40% of whom are Kuwaiti citizens. More than 3 million of Kuwait's population are workers who came to Kuwait from different countries to work. The conditions for becoming a citizen in Kuwait are that you have to reside there for 20 years and be a Muslim. Maybe they will accept you and make you a citizen. Now that we have said all this, you may ask this question. Why does a country with such wealth and such a small population have so many old tires? How many cars are there in this country? One of the sheikhs of Kuwait has decided to recycle these tires. They are marking this land for this purpose, and are also contacting neighboring countries and saying, "Send your old tires here." For 20 years, they have been collecting all the old tires in the region, which is more than 50 million old tires. But it seems that the Kuwaiti sheikh is changing his mind because these tires are just stored in a desert and nothing is done. Since 2012, this cemetery has caught fire 3 times, which they say was due to extreme heat. You know what pollution a tire can cause when it catches fire, and it's hard to put it out. You've seen oil wells catch fire and black smoke rises from them, just like these tires, but the oil that's burning is just oil that's burning, whereas tires contain dozens of chemicals. Various substances that are added to the tires to make them durable, anti-slip, and radial. All of these chemicals are dangerous, and these fires severely pollute the area. The fires that have occurred in this cemetery can even be seen from space. This is a satellite image. Spontaneous fires in warehouses of tires like this happen a lot in the world. For example, in February 1990 in Canada, the largest fire occurred in an old tire cemetery, which could not be extinguished for 17 days. The fire of these tires produced so much toxic and bad pollution that the residents of the area were forced to move to the next city because they could not breathe properly. After these fires in Kuwait, the surrounding countries raised their voices and protested against the Kuwaiti government and said, "Why did you collect all these tires like this?" After pressure from the neighbors, the Kuwaiti government was forced to invest and establish a number of tire recycling factories near this cemetery. After the factories were established, within a few months, they transported all these tires to the factories. After that, you look at this cemetery from above, and this is what it looks like. Now we want to know how they recycle all these tires. There are 3 main ingredients in tires: rubber, carbon black, which gives the tire its durability, and metal wires. There are also other chemicals that are not the main ones. First, they compress the tires into smaller pieces and put them in a furnace that is heated to 450 degrees Celsius. As you know, when the tire burns, it turns into smoke. Black smoke is all the material inside. This device compresses the smoke, cools it, and turns it into a black powder. A powder that can be called carbon, and it can be used in many different places. When the tires smoke and the smoke is collected, a lot of wires remain at the end of the furnace. They cool the wires and pull them out. The wires are very easy to recycle. This system that we have just described to you is the most modern method of recycling tires, but there are other methods. Another method is to pulverize the tires and turn them into rubber flooring. These floorings are used in garages and repair shop floors. They are also recycled in another way. The thing is that rubber powder is mixed with asphalt, and it produces an asphalt that makes a little noise when cars move over it. But let's go to another cemetery. You see this cemetery. What do you think is inside? Flowers? Wheats? Agriculture? No, there is none. This is China's bicycle cemetery. In 2014, the Chinese decided to put bicycles everywhere in their cities so that everyone could use them for a small fee. In 3 years, the Chinese installed 16 million bicycles in different cities. After 6 months, they realized that there were too many bicycles. During peak hours, 10% of them were used. They had built so many bicycles for this project that they had no place to park them. For example, in Beijing they could park 1.2 million bicycles neatly without damaging the beauty of the city. While in Beijing alone they brought 2.5 million bicycles, which is more than twice the city's capacity. There was no choice but to establish a new cemetery. Bicycle cemetery. The difference between China's bicycle cemetery and Kuwait's tire cemetery is that the bicycles are not collected in one cemetery, but in different cemeteries in different parts of China, each of which contains between 50,000 and 200,000 bicycles. They don't know exactly how many Chinese scrapyards there are, but they say there are more than 5 million and the number is increasing day by day. Finally, we'll see a strange cemetery, which is interesting. However, this cemetery is not a cemetery of bicycles and tires. This is a cemetery of people. The An Bang Cemetery in Hue, Vietnam. One of the wonders of this cemetery is that it was built in a very poor neighborhood, but each grave costs about $70,000. You should know that in Vietnam, the average salary of an ordinary worker is about $150 a month. Now, how they buy a $70,000 grave is unclear. Vietnamese culture says that if a friend, relative, or acquaintance dies, the memorial service should be held in the best possible way. When a Vietnamese person dies, all their friends, acquaintances, and relatives pool their money and buy a grave for them in a decent cemetery. This is if, for example, they don't even have a house themselves. They don't come to pool their money to buy a house for one of their own, but they give it for the grave. It's not clear exactly, but they say that this cemetery belongs to the Vietnamese government. This is also the entrance to the cemetery. It is a masterpiece of art in itself. There are many masterpieces inside the cemetery. Tourists come to see this cemetery because its fame has become almost universal.